And a very good morning to you, and welcome to Friday, November 19th, 2021. This is Andrew Horowitz. This is the pre-market rundown, where we go through a variety of items that recap some of the things that are going on during the week, as well as some of the things that are looking pretty interesting moving forward into the weeks ahead. And as we've noticed over the last several days, kind of a decoupling what's going on right now with regard to markets, where we see that the NASDAQ, the tech names, the kind of pandemic lockdown kind of style where everybody was going towards technology is starting to pop up again, where everything else on the other side is starting to show weakness. And one of the things we saw this morning and overnight were a couple of really interesting items that crossed the tape. That was that Austria is going to be doing a full and absolute lockdown. Germany probably not too far behind. So that is causing some problems. We're seeing that in the commodity market with oil. We're seeing that with the Dow Jones Industrial Futures down another 210 in the pre-market. The SPOOs, the ES, the S&P 500 is off by about 9.5. But yet the NASDAQ, the top 100 of the NASDAQ, the largest of the NASDAQ, primarily, as you know it, Amazon and Facebook, or Meta as they call it now, and Netflix, and the names that you know like Google and Microsoft, doing well in this environment. Kind of an interesting situation where we're seeing that small caps are selling off and the value side is having some trouble as well. Now, before we go any further, I have to tell you that this is, of course, information that is to be used for educational purposes only. Investing involves substantial risk. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. And, of course, you could lose money when you invest. That's what this is all about. Obviously, the idea of what we're talking about each and every Friday and what we've designed into our platform, our strategies, our indicators are simply giving you the best shot, giving you high confidence trades, looking for those areas that we could see a vertical move through price rather than just a simple consolidation of price through time. So basically what we're doing is trying to give you a setup that really works in your favor and giving you those opportunities through the indicators. And once you know and get accustomed to the look and feel and how things look, like on the chart on the right, which we're looking at the small cap index, which is showing you're in a long-term, well, I shouldn't say, well, we're in a bit of a midterm, I'll call it, uptrend, where we saw that the bottoming out in October. We saw some shorts get covered, right? Got a short right here, about 151. And then we went into the area right about here. We got the call to get out, went long again right here at about 152 and change, held into about 159, spooked out, if you see that real quickly, a day later, kind of got a quick short, kind of quick long, then again got a nice long call. And the main thing here, there was nothing to the left. We saw nothing at all that was going to the left, and that was important, where we see that there's kind of nothing here in this whole void. It's a black hole, as we call it, and that area is an area that you can see some substantial moves to the upside right now. Now, recognize something, that what we're seeing now also is the potential for that downside move, because, again, when we look left, just reversing our theory, the fact is there's nothing really there. And when we see that there's nothing there, we know we could see a move vertically through time, through time that's very, and price for that matter, that either one you want to look at it, but it's basically a vertical move versus, let's say, a consolidation, which we see right here, right? But these vertical moves can happen both ways. And we saw that with names like the EV stocks this week. So when we're looking at the differential between a level of consolidation, where we're kind of just slogging along for a period of time between a range of prices, and that's a horizontal move that's slowly through time. And then when we look at the opposite, which is these vertical moves that move very quickly through price, you have to recognize there's two sides of this sword, if you will. Also noticing that Bitcoin is picking up, still very, very weak over the last few days. Gold has been holding up extraordinarily well over the last few days. Pretty interesting to see that, considering all things. The dollar finally started begging off. Well, also, we want to mention that you can find the full suite of indicators right now over on the TradeStation Trading App Store. The link is right there. You can also get replays of this on our YouTube channel, also over on TriggerCharts.com, where there's a ton of information and education, learning. There's tools, techniques, all of that is over on TriggerCharts.com as well. Inside of this chat, please, right here, if you can spell it right, I'll put it up. the word here. I'm having troubles. There we go. Do me a favor and give me your symbols. I saw there was one that came in just now, but pump in a few others that you want us to look at. I think last week we went over the whole idea of really the idea of markets trade in two ways. There was a newsletter that went out. Hopefully you're on that newsletter list. Should have gotten that and going to get one coming up soon. We're going to try to do a little bit more of those for education. But basically what we're seeing right now is that there's a lot of themes that are at play. And that's why we are starting off the discussion every Friday with a theme. And what's the theme this week? Well, it's EV and Meta. You mentioned electric vehicle like Apple did yesterday and started moving the stock crazily that maybe they're going to have a fully autonomous vehicle by X date. You mentioned the idea of metaverse and stocks go crazy. And really you have to think back to other times that we saw this. There are times in the market where you see these kinds of manic moves when new technology comes about usually, and everybody stops on the wagon. And everybody says, oh, we have that too. You remember when everybody was all of a sudden into blockchain and you just mentioned the word blockchain and a stock would just shoot up, 5, 10, 15% on no reason otherwise? You had the internet when they talked about, we're on the line, right back in 1998, 1999, into 2000. What happened? Stocks went berserk. We're seeing the same thing right now. We saw Rivian. We saw Lucid Motors go crazy for a number of days, backed off dramatically over the last two. Seeing a little bit of a bounce in Rivian today, but these are companies that have absolutely, one of them doesn't have any cars out at all. One has, I think, 100. And the valuations are into the multiple high billions. So this is a big issue. And again, what we saw with Apple up 2.5% yesterday, talking about that they have an EV that's coming to market. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. Or maybe just getting in on the wagon, because we know that the PR departments of these companies are in full swing. So you got to take advantage of that. You got to look for when that happens and say to yourself, okay, is this real or is this something else? And you'll notice that some of the meme stocks had some of the best PR departments available really work in the markets, probably behind the scenes through Reddit and through all of the various social media. And that's a big issue. That doesn't mean you can't make money on it, but you got to know when to play and when to get out. We did see a massive reversal yesterday on the Momo stocks, right? You look at any of the names that were really climbing higher due to this idea of Meta and some of the smaller names and EV. You see some of the names that really popped dramatically, and you are seeing that they are rolling pretty hard over the last several days. It looks like a flight to safety is going on right now, where we have the idea that there could be some further issues that are happening around the world. Now we know that the U.S. is not going to lock down. Well, that's just not going to happen, it seems. States are just not, the politicians don't have the palate for it, nor maybe should they. Whatever the reason, we're not going to get into that. The fact is that we are seeing it around the world otherwise, though, and places around the world are big problems. We also saw, for example, overnight, Japan putting out another $500 billion stimulus program. We saw the news overnight that the $1.75 billion Build Back Better program by Biden is looking to get at least pushed through as soon as possible, which means it's going to take a couple months. So here we are, where there's a lot of rampant news going around. You need to be on your toes more than ever right now, because one of the things we did see is while the markets in certain areas have looked pretty good, the breadth is terrible. And we can kind of take a look at some of that where we see the McClellan indicator, right? This is McClellan, this is the Spearman. The McClellan indicator, even though we're kind of approaching highs here, look at this divergence. And I think Tom McClellan would tell you, hey, that's kind of a warning sign that I look at it like either a thin layer of ice that's over a lake, or even the potential you're standing on a street with a giant sinkhole underneath it. What this is things underneath the surface are deteriorating. And as that happens, and as you see this deterioration, and the Spearman in particular moving down, also bouncing off that zero line, but this is really the advanced decline line. You're seeing this terrible momentum, and that started really right there on the beginning of this month. So we're like, 10, 12 days in, or 15 days in from where that started, from that peak, and it's really been deteriorating. But meanwhile, seeing this kind of move to the upside, very much concentrated in the big names, and that's why we're seeing, again, the NASDAQ on the top here, right? This is the important thing. The NASDAQ right here is, in fact, doing well, But this, you're seeing this deterioration overall on the McClellan and the advanced decline. So I think that's important to really consider when you're looking at that. So you're also looking, for example, this chart here. This chart is the advanced decline on a daily basis. Again, we're seeing kind of a volume hold up pretty well. This is the basic volume on the NYSE. This is the volume on the NASDAQ. We can spread it out to look at it a little better. Holding up pretty well. However, yesterday, it was pretty much 2-to-1 decliners to advancers. Red are decliners. Go backwards and you look at this, we've seen a lot of massive amount of decliners to advancers. And when it gets towards a better level, it's almost 50-50. Right? It's, kind of 1.6 to 1.6, 1.7 to 1.6. And that's happening again recently. I'm just looking at this month where we're seeing the decliners start to pick up dramatically. I mean, you can see that very simply by looking at, the red line. And then when you start looking at the blue line, what we're seeing is it's starting to move down. So that is a warning sign that the ice is thin. If you do see the top line companies, the Facebooks, all the big names, I'm not going to mention them all, you know them. They start to reverse a little bit. That is going to probably be a problem, especially if you can't keep the IWM or the small caps up. Big issue right there that you really need to consider. So with that, let's go back to where we were. Inflation, big argument about inflation. Big question is, hey, why aren't bond yields spiking? This is all out battle over whether or not this is transitory. And I tweeted something this morning. I said, you know what? Listen. Inflation is always, I want you to really hear me on this. Inflation, if you look at the numbers, you go back in history, you do all the work on this, inflation is always transitory. Always. What's not transitory is the fact that prices throughout the lifespan of history are sticky. There are times that we do see deflation, no question about that. But even after an inflationary period, we go back to a level of 2%, let's say, or 1.5%. The fact is price is still moving higher. Very rarely do we have deflation. In fact, one of the things that you're going to see by the Fed is that they're always in a massive fight to defeat deflation. So Fed chair nomination is coming up. Powell is likely. Lyle Brainerd over the weekend, probably, I'm sure, if they want to follow the script, they're going to announce it over the weekend. And then by the way, that they're all just mechanical. This whole administration is just a mechanical process of just trying to appease. If they do this over the weekend, not during market hours, you'll know that they are, and particularly if they renominate Jerome Powell, you'll know that there is a significant amount of let's just keep it, just going the way it is. So I think that's going to happen. Powell probably likely going to be elected. The only thing is that, Lyle Brainerd is a woman, and this administration is really big on putting women into the fold. So that's the only question. Turns out, though, that Brainerd is probably even more dovish, if you can imagine that. I don't even know how we can imagine that, but Brainerd is even more dovish than Powell. So one of the things we're also seeing, Yellen and a variety of others are blaming the global supply chain problems and the pandemic for inflation. Interesting. So it's not the low rates that are causing all this excess money. It's not the stimulus. No, it's the global supply chain, which is magically caused by no reason, and the pandemic that caused inflation. So they're kind of off their rockers a little bit, something you need to really consider when we look at that. You see that, by the way, a big move already up. We're seeing that the SPOOs are moving up dramatically right now into the open. We're seeing the same, about 70 points on the YMs. Kind of Qs are sitting right there. But this is the play we've been seeing the whole time. Bitcoin's starting to move up dramatically. What we've been seeing is into the open. It's very much a Pavlovian response. Again, I mentioned this earlier, markets look vulnerable on the precipice, if you will. We looked at the KRI over the last number of weeks, and we saw that there was this massive amount of buildup of heat right there, right? This was overdone. We saw these levels that started and then started moving up right into that level. There was that drop because you have to cool off. Right now, when we look at this side, we look at the fact it's only a +2. Well, that's cooled off nicely. And if you read this, because it tells you right there what it is, it gives you a nice summation of this. It's near equilibrium with a slight bias towards upside movement. That's where we are right now. We're hot, but not too hot. So when we look at that and you kind of look at what's happening with regard to this, big issue is that we're seeing that a substantial amount of buildup of pressure. Now it's being relieved. It's being relieved underneath the surface, as we've discussed, not really on the top. All right. Otherwise, what else we got? Coin slippage. We saw that. Biden signed the bill. Coins came in a bit, and we're going to look at a little bit of Bitcoin and Ethereum here. Next week coming up, short week, of course. We have Thursday off. Friday's a half day. GDP, the second read, is going to be coming in next week. PCE prices, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, will be coming out as well. And the FOMC minutes, I don't think anybody's going to be paying too much attention to that. 4-hour coaching course, I think I mentioned that. You can get that by simply writing us after you subscribe to the Commander Series over on TradeStation. Just write us at support@TriggerCharts.com. And some stocks we'll be looking at. I think what we'll do right now, this is what you're looking at right in front of you, aside from, let's take this off. Let's take the aileron off. This is exactly what you look at when you open the box, when you get and subscribe to the TriggerCharts Commander Series. Basically, it's an all-in-one package. You got 4 different indicators bundled into one. Wow, look at the markets move. See, I'm telling you, right into the open, they scream it higher. Interesting, they're turning off the cues right here, so something's going on. Interesting. Maybe there's a cure that would boost up this side and take down this side somehow. I don't know. Something's going on. There's some news that's happening, I'm sure. Let's see if I see anything on my little register here. No, nothing major. Probably just right into the open, just get things squared out. So what you see is a multi-time frame. Where you see like minute, M stands for minute, 30, 60, 240, daily and weekly. You can look all in one of what's happening on multiple time frames. Very important to give you a higher confidence reading of what's going on. Let's look at what's happening here. Apple, obviously we saw that breakout yesterday over the top. Very nice move. We saw that we had a altimeter drawn autopilot gave you an alert the day before that there was a breakout going to be happening. This is on a daily chart, and if you got onto that, you would have been right in on the open there, 153 at 4 points on Apple. I think Amazon did a similar situation. Yeah, Amazon yesterday up nicely, breaking above. If you looked at just simply the levels of interest that we saw, and we kind of looked at some of these a few times, I think, those kind of where you could draw a line across, connect several different lines, bounced off that 31.94 really successfully a few times after its earnings, came in a little bit after its earnings recently, and then plowed higher as everybody said, you know what are we kidding ourselves? Amazon's the man. Everybody's going to be buying from them over the holidays. And we saw that alert again. Yellow is an alert saying, hey, wake up, something's going on. One of the things I like to do is if I see that really moving above the alert with nothing too much to the left that's bothering the opportunity for a move continuing and a continuation move higher, I may not wait to the green, which is going to pop today. I may start adding in right after I see into the close that it held above or throughout the day. So you don't have to wait to the close to the green necessarily for that confirmation. What you could do is start sneaking into a position, whether it's futures, a currency, whether it's a coin, whether it's a stock or an index or ETF. You could basically work with the yellows when you see that long alert on a daily. We see that on NVIDIA yesterday, that beautiful move higher, consolidation. Where are we going from here? Looks like the sky's the limit. I mean, we saw NVIDIA move from 212, okay, this is daily, 212 on 10/14. We're talking about 1 month. This stock has gone up 100 points, 120 points. It's like a 40% move. This is all on the chip shortage, the idea that they're being used for major items in the metaverse. I think, let's see, when did Facebook mention metaverse? Somewhere right about here, right? When they were all at the bottom here. And then they started plowing a bit higher. Hood really getting just knocked down. You can't even, it's kind of at the end. I can't even bring my chart there. Let's see. There's Hood. All the way down below its IPO level when it came out on the market. Obviously, lots of problems, lower overall trading that's going on there. Big problems with regulators. And maybe there's a lot less trading that's going on right now with Robinhood. Baba saw a big drop yesterday, came right into its level, right there. If we draw a line, simply take out your line tool. Always use these line tools just to accentuate. Look at that. Pop, 141.66. Again, that's a rough draw right there. On the low side, nothing to the left there. Looks absolutely awful. Is it going to bounce? I don't know. Did it bounce? Yes. It came up from 141. Now it's 143. Whoop-de-doo. Fact is that this is something we probably need to pay attention to. The idea that we're seeing that Alibaba is now a problem due to the fact there's a lot less spending in China. Somebody's mentioned CWB, which is, what is this? SPDR, Bloomberg Convertible Securities. So let's take a look back on this very wild moves, very loose within a relative amount. I mean, from 80s, right, to 86. Goes from 80, goes to 92. The thing is, convertibles are, of course, really representative of certain stocks that are behind them, and that's some of the problems that you see here. When you look at what's going on with regard to this, we got coming right into its core again. Very simple. Draw a line. Bing. Put that line. Get it on multiple matching points across. Look at that 87.40. Low here was 87.43. So give or take, that's pretty tight and pretty close. Where are we going from here? I think there maybe some downside, possibly to the 86. Probably bounce up within a range right now, not too exciting. I don't see a lot until you get back over probably this 80, 89 and a half level on CWB. Somebody asked me about AZ. Is that, wait, let me look. ASO. Please put your symbols in. Wow, look at that. People buying guns. This is whoa, look at that chart. Wow, they can make it look really cool. I bet you if we go to weekly, watch, boop, that's pretty amazing, right? Weekly. This is a gun company. That's what they do. What was their old name? Not Sturm Ruger. It was Colt. No. Somebody help me out. What was the old name of ASO? Anyway, I'll look it up in the background as we do this. ASO stock. Oh, I'm having a mental moment here. Let's see. It was, I don't know. Yeah, it's guns. I don't remember. I can't find it. I'm not in the mode to do that. Somebody knows what it was. Anyway, they sell guns. Is the point. Yeah. I think ASO is really. They may sell a lot of other things, but guns are a big issue. Point is, they're breaking out. Obviously, people are very concerned about their safety, it seems. Stock has been on a nice trend up. You simply can draw a couple of lines there and see that. I don't think there's any mystery when it comes to where we are here, right? I mean, you look at this kind of general trend here. You're on a trend up, really not breaking down too well at all, and getting a nice signal to move on the all-time high again here. So that looks pretty good. Somebody knows the name of ASO. Nobody knows the name of ASO? Now I'm like, really? ASO was originally... I don't know. I'm looking this up. Yep. Anyway, so let's see what else we got. Pfizer, we know what's going on there. Okay, everything's fine with that. Myrna's up today on giving some additional approvals for what's going on with regard to the vaccine. Just to get back to ASO for a second, I'll tell you something. I've been talking to some people in the business of things like sporting goods. They can't get the sporting goods. I'm just saying, look at and try to find out a little bit more. Stock chart is looking fine. Fundamentally, you got to wonder whether they're going to have anything to sell in the next few months and whether they're going to actually be able to sell things. Yes, they'll knock prices up, but the question is, will they actually have inventory? I'm hearing some real strain on inventory on all things. We heard about this 2 years ago with baseball bats. 2 years ago, before the pandemic. Zoom Media, nothing good here. The only thing you could say is, hey, are we going to possibly go back to lockdowns and everybody's going to renew? Don't forget, one of the big things that happened, like, for example, with Disney Plus and Zoom, and there's a lot of freebies, a lot of freeloaders on the system back in the pandemic days, and they thought people would convert, and they used all those subscriber numbers, unless you looked very deeply. They used them all as kind of like, a ballywick, and hey, look what we got, and especially with Disney Plus, when it first came out, and everybody was just trying it out, and you got that first 30-day, whatever it was, freebie on Disney Plus. Like, look at all the subscribers we have. Listen, if I give away free something right now, how many people are going to want it and bite it, right? I mean, if I said, hey, I got $500 free for you, aren't you going to become a subscriber? Hello? So the fact of the matter is that, you got to watch some of that. And I think after people started slightly going back to work, doing less, had Zoom fatigue, the stock really kind of came in very dramatically. Now, it's moving up today, probably on an oversold situation, but more so probably on the news out of Germany. China stocks just look awful. If you want to play something, we've talked about this before, this range of KWEB, KWEB, is something that we looked at, of course, and where are we now? We're up a little bit, 48. You're still in this consolidation through time. Classic look of a consolidation through time right here, where it's just not going anywhere. But that doesn't mean you can't play it. I mean, it'd be nice from 47 to 52 would be a nice little move, a 10% move up, right? Upstart, something we talked about, and I was worried about this falling out of bed. It did. Look at that. We talked about this very high-priced stock. I said, hey, watch this. If this thing breaks down, you got a problem. I talked about this for 2 weeks. And this did, in fact, start breaking down. Came from 320 down to 227. I'm still waiting for, like, RH to break down very dramatically. It is starting to get there, and Wayfair as well. Wayfair did break down already, coming back up. Very thinly traded, though. It's hard to really judge that one. Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin is charging back higher after a couple of days really getting smacked pretty good. This is a 30-minute chart on the left-hand side right here. And when we look at this and we see, when we're looking at this kind of move, these indicators can be used for any particular symbol. And because it's all the same data that comes into it. So the algorithm can calculate it very nicely. So when you look at this and we see this kind of drop down overall of, the move that was very pronounced, if you caught this right, we're talking about just at about 59,002. Got out of it about 57,006 for a nice couple thousand points. Nothing wrong with that. Kind of in, out a little bit. Another move down, 57.3, down to 55, another couple thousand. And then you got this nice move higher after a nice consolidation right there. And for Bitcoin or for the coins, that's a good consolidation. They don't consolidate very long before people get all excited about them. Problem is on the right-hand side, that 53,486 that we've been looking at, well, let's kind of redraw that line right now. And let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at this line right here and say, well, where are we? Well, we're kind of right square with, if we connected a few different lines, give or take 56.5. I'd put that as a decent number right there to look at. On the lower end of this all, where are we? I'd kind of say, well, you got a nub right there at about 51.8. That's when we look across back to April. We could probably go back a little bit further. This high level, low level, we're kind of in that same look right now. Right? We're in that same exact look. Look at this here. Look at this here. A little bit more condensed on the right side than the left side. Fact of the matter is, though, where do we go from there? There's much better support, to be honest with you, at about 45,000. That's where there's a great consolidation moving on right there. Now, when we kind of move over to each ETH USD, you can track these on TradeStation. There's a variety of them. There's futures and the cash contract. They're live. And you look at this, what are we seeing? Well, we did see that breakdown yesterday, and then the reversal up. Great move, amazing move. You would have followed this. You would have been in back in October, right about 3,200, taken out at about 4,400. 44.30. Then a couple of ins and outs, nowhere to be found, making no money. None of these are money makers right here. No money maker. You may have been short overnight, then you got out at an even. Right now, you still have a while to go. Let's take a look at where that is. Zooming out a little bit. What we want to look at is the levels. Probably, let's see. Somewhere right in between here. 4,000 probably is a level that's going to be respected. It did drop a little bit below that last couple of days, then pop higher. From there, you have either one or two things going to happen. This thing's going to jam higher above that 45.90, or let's call it 46, or you're going to start to see some pain, and then you're probably going to, there's really not a lot going on down here, to be honest with you. Possibly the 33s, better support right about 3,200 on Ethereum. So, this, again, very simple. What we want to do here is we want to really look left and find out where those holes are. So we did drop, through this area. We did drop very nicely where it should have probably dropped. Support somewhat where it should have dropped too. And then what we have now is the potential for, anything goes. The problem is you got this area right here. That's a concern of mine. That brings you to about, let's see, that brings you right about to 37.92, 37.50. That's an area that I would be looking at and possibly putting some buys on at that point if we do see a quick drop into that level. BLDR would be the last one we look at. And another all-time high. Stocks look good. You know, build this for a source. Same thing. You can't get supplies and building supplies and all that. You know, well, prices go up and profitability probably goes up. So that's what that story is telling you right there. Hey, listen, thanks so much for joining me. Be here next Friday. We will be here next Friday, I believe, unless I tell you otherwise, but I think we're going to be. I'll have to check that. Unless it's a good fishing day. That's a different story entirely. Have a good week. I'll see you again soon.